Good morning, good morning, good morning. How's everybody doing? Welcome to Psychology 118 this morning. My name is Dr. Roddenberry, coming to you live from my home office in Willow Springs, North Carolina. My green screen background is bumping back and forth. I'm not sure why it's having that problem today. I don't know if it's the hat or what it is, but my light appears to be flickering on and off. I do apologize for that. But I'm going to go ahead and talk today and lecture a little bit about Chapter 8. How's everybody doing? Good to see you. Who we got in the audience today? Of course I have Johanna. Of course I have Caleb. Of course I have Dimitro here. I've got all of you great people here every day. What a great group of students. I can't even begin to tell you how happy and proud I am to have a group of students like you. You folks are fantastic. Good to see you, Matthew. Don't forget, we will be doing our webinar tonight at 8 p.m. You're welcome to come to this webinar rather than do the discussion board, or you can do the discussion board. It's completely up to you. And I just don't know why my screens are not doing well today. You know what? Maybe it's that. Maybe I just need a little more color. Okay, there. Nope. Still not helping me out. Okay. Well, whatever. At any rate, let's go ahead and carry on. So today we're talking about Chapter 8. Remember, I told you we are skipping Chapter 7 and going straight to Chapter 8 for this class, okay? So we're going to Chapter 8. We're going to be talking a little bit about interpersonal communication today. So we're going to talk about what interpersonal communication is, face-to-face and computer-mediated communication. We're going to talk about the 5 general principles of nonverbals. And then we're going to talk a little bit about the dynamics of personal space, body movement, posture, gesture, touch, and paralanguage and communication. And then actually we're going to talk about deception tomorrow. Okay, so one of the things that this class is designed to do is to help you become a more successful human being. I know none of you is here because you are trying to become a psychologist. What this class is designed to do is to help you become more effective at doing whatever it is you're going to do outside the field of psychology. One of the most important things that you have to be able to do to be successful in the business world, no matter what you do, is you have to be able to communicate with other people. Communicating with other people is really, really difficult. I am not great at it myself. My wife is awesome at it. She's a hotel manager and runs her business every day and has 50 employees and all of these guests. And just the ability that she has compared to me to communicate effectively and to get what she wants really, really impresses and makes me proud. And what I want you to do, to be able to do as graduates of this class, is to understand how you present yourself and how this affects your ability to get your message across, and most importantly, to get what it is you want in life, right? So interpersonal communication. So what are we talking about? Any process that involves at least 2 people, that's a give and take series of steps, and is bidirectional and interactional. So what I'm doing right now is not so much, is more one way than 2 way. If you folks were typing questions to me and I was answering to you, then we would call it interpersonal communication. The reason I do the Wednesday night webinars is that so we can engage in interpersonal communication, because I realize that this particular forum right here is a little limited. It's a little bit one way, and it's not as bidirectional as it needs to be. So interpersonal communication is anything between two people that involves a little bit of give and take and is interactional. Now, why do you care? Why should you care about effective communication? Well, it's because it's going to allow you to be more successful in your environment. It's going to allow you to show good adjustment. Effective communication is essential for many important aspects of life. What are some things that interpersonal communication are useful for? Can somebody out there in TV land tell me what's something good you could do if you were a good interpersonal communicator? What would be any advantage you might have by being a good interpersonal communicator? I'd like to hear somebody from the peanut gallery let me know. Okay? What's a good thing that comes from being a great interpersonal communicator? Right? Can anybody tell me professionally how might it affect you? You know, and I'll leave that out there for a moment. Now, I do want you to know that good communication enhances the satisfaction in relationships. In fact, females tend to be a little bit better at interpersonal communication than men in general. And so what you're going to find is that while most females are pretty good at communicating, there is great variation in guys' ability to engage in interpersonal communication. And what you're going to find is that as guys become better communicators, satisfaction in relationships goes up. So the quality of a man's ability to engage in interpersonal communication is one of the bigger predictors of relationship satisfaction. And you know, poor communication is a major cause of relationship breakups. But you know what? Poor communication is going to keep you from getting that raise. Poor communication is going to make you look bad in that presentation that you have to give. Poor communication is going to impact your ability to work in groups. So we're going to want to be good communicators. Now let's think about all the parts of the communication. There's the sender. We typically think about the sender and the receiver. I talk to you, you talk to me, right? And we always talk about something, the message. But, you know, let's think about the other ways that we can deliver information. So we can talk about the channel. Right now I'm delivering my communication to you via YouTube as opposed to different than not using Microsoft Teams. Now I had to make certain choices based upon the values of YouTube versus the values of using Microsoft Teams for my daily lectures. There are some limitations with what I'm doing with YouTube. You can't talk and ask me questions. You're not quite as engaged. However, I can record this and it's easier for me to record for students who can have access to it later. So this channel does affect my ability to communicate with you. Noise, right now I'll bet I'm fighting with your desire to check your social media right now, your Instagram posting, your other YouTube videos. I know that when I'm talking, there is noise that is occurring that is stopping you from hearing me 100%. I can see who's actually viewing me right now. We're down to 3. There were 6, so it looks like a couple of people have fallen off and are watching something else. They're probably checking their Instagram right now or their Facebook, or they probably found a cool video on cats that they're watching right now, but they'll probably come back. So that's the noise. And then we're talking specifically about the context in which we exist in. And what we are in right now is an electronically mediated environment right here. Yes, I'm talking to you. Yes, you're talking to me, but we are talking through some technology right now. Now, the crazy thing is, I'm from a world before technology, so I would be called what we would call a digital immigrant. This world is new to me, and I don't like it quite as well as I like being with students one-on-one, right? However, I talk to my students like you who are younger than me, some of you who are in your 20s and maybe even in your 30s, you've never known a world without the internet, without social media, without your cell phones. And you're what we would call digital natives. to you, you can't even see this world that we're interacting through because you grew up with this world. So while computer mediation is problematic for, say, me as an older person, a lot of younger people actually would prefer to mediate their interactions through computers. Just a quick question. How many of you, how old are you, and do you prefer meeting people online, romantic partners online, or in person? How many of you would prefer to meet your romantic partners online as opposed to in person, right? Now, the primary benefit of social networking sites is being able to present yourself virtually to any online community. And it's cool to me to see my sons up there playing with friends from China, friends from California, friends from around the world. That's an amazing way to escape the limitations of one's local, the restrictions of being in one's area. That's amazing. You know, I also have students that prefer to come into my online classes because they want to talk in computer settings, but they're too afraid to talk in real settings. So you're an in-person kind of person, Marita. Okay, cool. Some people would prefer to meet online, and it depends on how comfortable you feel with this mediated relationships and these mediated technologies. And you know, I do have parents. I prefer in person. I tried stuff long distance relationships, but it was good in person. Felt much better. Okay, fantastic. But the cool thing is that the computer does allow you to reach out. Maybe if you're shy, if you don't have the nerve to talk to people in bars or coffee shops or grocery stores. There are some people who feel a certain amount of comfort when they have this veil of distance between themselves. However, you can lose your sense of privacy. You know, the things that you say not only go out to everyone, but they go out forever. And you know, back in my day, you could slip and say something at a party about yourself and engage in a little unhealthy self-disclosure. And the only people who knew that bad thing about you were the people who happened to be within earshot at that given time. However, we go on social media and we post our problems or our most intimate details. Those intimate details are out there for everybody forever, right? And you know, most of us don't spend time thinking about how bad these events could get. We most of the time think about all the positive things that come from throwing ourselves out there. But you do have to realize that some of the things you say may or may not cost you a job, a love relationship, a friendship later on down the line. Dimitro likes both online and in person. What's the advantage of online? I paired up in 94. I've been married 27 years and dating since 90. So even before people really had computers in their homes, I was already paired up. If you would, Dimitro, while I'm typing, go ahead and chat and tell me what it is that you like about online relationships, because you're saying both of them have their advantages, and I'd be curious of hearing your opinion. In the meantime, I'm going to go ahead and talk. Now, one of the things is human beings perceive words and emotion, words in our left ear, grammar in our left ear. Your language, your verbal language abilities are processed primarily in your left hemisphere. But in the right hemisphere, you also process language, but you don't process the meaning as much as you process the nonverbal cues. You process eye contact, you process tone of voice, you process facial expression, and all of these are what we would call the nonverbal aspects of communication. So it's the transmission of meaning from one person to another through means or symbols other than words, right? So as I'm talking to you, I'm always smiling. You can tell that I'm having a good time doing this. On the other hand, if I was to talk to Dimitro and get this look on my face right here and start yelling at him like this, and you could see the anger in my face, you could see that I'm conveying a different sort of meaning in this particular lecture. And it all depends upon how I use my facial expressions. I can use the tone of my voice. I can speak really fast, or I can speak really slowly. I can speak quietly, or I can speak way up here and real high, high, high. And so you can use all of these cues, and all of these are actually interpreted from the right side of your brain. Think about the left side of your brain as getting the grammar and the language, and your right side gets the emotion and the funniness in the joke, okay? And so nonverbal communication is an important part of how you communicate and present yourself with other people. It's emotional. It conveys not only the words, but the emotions. How many of you have ever texted something that you thought was super duper funny online, and it turns out that person didn't take it as funny and was partially insulted by what you said? It's because you weren't able to demonstrate the emotions of what you were trying to say. Demetrio says he likes it because he can meet people from other countries. You know, I do like the international aspect of life, so I could see how that would be interesting to you, Demetrio. So it conveys emotions, so that sometimes when we text, we aren't able to convey the right emotion, right? It's multi-channeled, so I'm going to use the tone of my voice. I'm going to use my facial expression. I'm going to use lots of different things to help convey meaning. Now, the weird thing is sometimes these messages, since they are not exactly direct, they may be interpreted differently by different people, right? And sometimes we actually contradict what we're saying with our emotional demeanor. In fact, that's one of the ways in which people who are lie detectors attempt to detect when people are being dishonest. Because what's going to happen is, for most people, your nonverbals go with the thing that you're saying. But when people are lying, they are trying to convey one emotion, and sometimes the wrong emotion will slip out, and the good lie detecting person will be able to notice when that happens. What are the elements of nonverbal communication? The personal space that you give to someone, the way you express your face, whether you're smiling, frowning, or exciting, making eye contact with people. One of the things that I'm really good at that seems to really shock people sometimes is I have a really good way of making eye contact. I will be in a store buying something from somebody, and I like to really lock eyes and notice the color of their eyes while I'm talking to them. If you notice the color of the person's eyes, it means that you are definitely making great eye contact. And you'll be surprised by how many people are pleasantly surprised when you make really good eye contact. On the other hand, when you're lying or telling somebody you really don't want to tell them, telling them something you really don't want to tell them, we oftentimes avert our eyes because we don't want to make that connection with a person. Body language is a way in which we convey what we're talking about, right? Touching people, whether or not we get close enough to touch them, whether we grasp them by the arms, by the shoulders, by the hands, touch, and these other paralinguistic channels are all part of the nonverbal communication process. So one of the things that really helps people to be successful is to learn how to find the right personal space. Don't get in on somebody too close. Learn how to make good eye contact. Learn how to show an open and positive body style, and learn how to use touch appropriately. There's a difference between touch and groping, and you have to be careful with that. So let's talk a little bit about personal space. The branch of science that's interested in that is called proxemics, and that's just the study of personal space. And each and every one of us has a zone of space that surrounds you that you would like for people to not violate. And then the size of that space will depend upon the nature of the relationship or the activity or the social norms. Dimitro, you're talking about you're from Ukraine. I had a Russian friend named Vitaly. way back in the 1990s, about 20 years ago. And one of the things that I noticed about Vitaly is that he would get really, really close to me. He would violate my social distance. And he would get in more of a personal distance rather than a social distance. So we're sitting around drinking beers. I want to be 3 to 4 feet away from Vitaly. But Vitaly would get up with his drink in his hand and he would walk up close to me. And we would do this dance around my apartment with me walking backwards, trying to create a little social distance between myself and Vitaly continually violating my zone of space. So there are going to be cultural differences which determine how close it is to be towards another person when you're talking to them. So learning how to appreciate what kind of distance is appropriate for that setting, for that person's culture, and for the nature of that activity will make you a more effective communicator. Have any of you had somebody violate your personal space, either in a social setting or a business setting? How do you feel when somebody comes too close to you? Have you ever had that experience from somebody? Right? You know, I have an older gentleman at the gym who loves to violate my space when I get in the gym. He always comes up to me and likes to hug me at the gym. And I really just don't feel comfortable getting in this intimate distance with this gentleman and having him touch me. I don't know how to say no, but he always seems to violate my space. And so I have sort of a more negative opinion of him because he doesn't know how to manage the appropriate amount of personal space. I don't know if any of you have stories about someone violating your personal space or somebody standing too far away from you. But trying to find the right spatial difference is quite important in being an effective communicator. Now, did you know that a fellow named Paul Ekman did some research and he went all over the world with pictures of people with different emotions in their face, and he would ask people from different parts of the world to make their own emotions, and what he found was that there appeared to be 6 universal emotions in the world. If you go anywhere in the world, people will recognize these 6 basic emotions. Now, there are more complex emotions: embarrassment, resignation, all of these other complex emotions. But what he found was that no matter where you went in the world, people had one of 6 ways of creating emotions. These are universal automatic emotions that appear to be baked into our biological makeup. And the crazy thing is, when people are lying sometimes, these universal emotions will sneak out of their body for just a second. They're called micro expressions. And what you'll find is that people will often tell on themselves because one of these universal emotions will come out contrary to the lie they're trying to tell. So fear will pop out on a person's face. And I've actually got some videos, if anybody's interested, of people who have learned how to detect micro emotions. Now, these emotions are created by how you move your eyes, how big your eyeballs are, whether or not you scrunch different parts of your face. So emotions are going to be played out in the lines on your forehead, your eyebrows, your eyes, your cheeks, your mouth, and even your lips, right? So we've got fear, right? Which is a little bit different from surprise, right? Fear has the wide open, but it doesn't have the smiling face, whereas surprise is kind of, it's shocked, but happily shocked, right? And then you can think of anger, right? The turning down of the lips. And if you add to the turning down of the lips a wrinkled nose, you get disgust. See, so in the nose to go along with the facial thing. So we've got surprise, fear, right? Then we've got anger and disgust, right? And so what you can find is that people all around the world use these parts of their face to create these 6 basic emotions. Now, there are, however, differences in how people use these emotions around the world. And there are culturally designed display rules that tell you when it is appropriate to use your happy face, when it is appropriate to use your anger face. So, for example, in an American culture, if your boss is giving you a hard time and telling you how bad you are at your work, you can use sadness or anger. You can show that emotion. It's appropriate to show that emotion. In other cultures, like in some Asian cultures, if your boss is dressing you down and telling you what a bad job you're doing, you may be feeling sad, but you're not allowed to show it. You actually have to show another emotion, like smiling, like getting yelled at is the most fun you've ever had in your life. So what Paul Ekman found was that there are 6 basic emotions that we use to convey feelings that go along with what we're saying. These 6 emotions are universal all over the world. However, in different cultures, we learn when it's appropriate to use which emotions. And I tell you that sometimes these emotions will sneak out when we are trying to hide them while we are lying. Exactly. And people do that, and that's a complete no-no, is it not, Johanna? Uh, when a guy comes up and puts his hand on you, a complete stranger, that's a complete no-no. I would say, Johanna, I've known you and we've talked for 4 or 5 months now and had lots of conversations, and I've even seen you streaming your camera. But I still probably wouldn't find it appropriate to violate your social distance of 3 foot, and I certainly would never think to touch you. How did you feel when that happened, Johanna? Was he doing it in a nice way, or do you think he was doing it in a threatening way? Okay. Now, duration of eye contact appears to be the most meaningful aspect of nonverbal of eyes. So how long you look at someone in the eyes is what really determines how impactful your eyes are in the nonverbal communication process. And there are cultural differences. Here in America, high levels of eye contact are associated with effective social skills and credibility. So looking a man in the eye when you talk to him is something that we're all taught, and it conveys a sense of honesty. You can trust me because I'm looking you in the eye. You know what? In some cultures, though, looking people in the eye is judged offensive. In fact, you can go to some gang areas that I've been to in around the world. You are told specifically, do not make eye contact because that's seen as a challenge to another person. So eye contact is one way in which we convey emotion or intensity to another person, and it depends upon the situation as to how appropriate it is. If you're in a European or an American business setting and you're trying to convince somebody that you mean what you say, a lot of eye contact is going to suggest that intensity and that truth and that credibility. In other cultures, eye contact is going to be seen as challenging, and so you're going to want to avoid that, right? So, like I said, in positive contexts, making eye contact can be a good thing. In situations where you don't know somebody and there's potentially hostility, eye contact can be seen as threatening or uncomfortable. And you know what? If you look, and what you'll notice is that people use eye contact to establish dominance. And what you're going to see is women in power positions tend to have to use even a little more eye contact to establish that feeling of dominance over people. So if you want somebody really to feel your power, learn how to make eye contact with them. But don't go doing that down on the block, because you might get beat up if you do that. Touch me to say hi. Yeah, and I feel uncomfortable. Yeah, my friend Andy likes to come up and touch me on my shoulder, and he's always commenting on how great a shape I am in. And it always just makes me feel really kind of creepy and uncomfortable. But he seems to get a big kick out of it, and I'm a fairly confident man, so I let Andy have his daily grope on me. But I can see how that would be really problematic for you, Johanna, right? Now, when you talk to people, one of the things that you can do is convey a sense of willingness to communicate by how you sit, right? So, an open posture with the legs a little bit spread, with the arms open and the palms facing forward, and the chest towards a person. That's going to convey an open posture and a sense of relaxation, a sense of cooperation, and that's going to help you communicate with another person. On the other hand, if you turn to the side from a person, if you close your arms, if you keep your knees close together, if you fold your shoulders over, you're giving a closed posture. And people are going to interpret this as such when you're trying to talk to them. Now, why does this matter, Chris? You're telling me about these things that are kind of obvious. When you're trying to talk to somebody and you're trying to convince somebody, you're trying to get something, what you want to do is you want to learn how to find the proper amount of social distance. You want to learn how to lock eye contact. Use your face and your body posture to convey a warm, positive emotion as you're talking to this person. Now, I guarantee you say, well, that's obvious, but I know tons of people that are absolutely horrible at communicating, and they don't learn how to use these simple nonverbals to convey credibility, to convey warmth, to convey positivity. And when you convey positive things to people, it's going to get positive things back for you. Whereas if you convey a sense of fear, if you convey a sense of dishonesty by not making eye contact, if you violate someone's perception of what the correct social distance is, these things are going to impair your ability to effectively communicate. And why do we want to effectively communicate? So that we can get what we want, so that we can get that job, so that we can get that raise, so that we can get that boyfriend or girlfriend, so that we can get that discount at the store. All of these nonverbals go along with your message to help you communicate. And you'll notice I'm also even using my hands too. All of us are going to use our hands to a certain or lesser degree to communicate. If you're like me, you have to have hands to communicate. It is very hard for you not to communicate with hands. I'm a big hand waver when I talk. And we use that sort of to convey excitement and positivity and energy as well. Okay, now, where and whom we touch conveys a variety of meanings, especially status and power. Okay, and as Johanna is suggesting, there are strong norms that govern where we touch friends. Female to female pairs touch more often than do male to male pairs. You know what? Sometimes when my buddy Pete shows up at the bar, I might slap him on the back. But that's about as far as it ever goes. I never reach across while I'm talking to him and grab his hands. I would never walk with my arm around Pete. Guys just don't do it like that. Whereas your female pairs, occasionally I do see females walking along, talking and holding hands. Or they'll use a longer hug, or they'll embrace while they talk. So touching has all of these rules that are based on how well you know the person, how professional the setting is, and what you're trying to convey. Putting your hand on someone's shoulder is a power move that you can use when you're trying to take authority from someone else. Again, be careful when you do that, especially if you do it in a cross-gender grab, because it can be interpreted another way. Cross-gender touch is interpreted by support as females, but as power or sexual interest by males. So Again, what we're saying is that touch can mean different things in different situations. So be careful how and when you use touch as a nonverbal form of communication. And then we do use paralanguage, which is vocal cues other than the content of the verbal message. By really stepping on words, right? That was a paralinguistic thing right there. I stepped on that word so you knew that was important. By talking and going on and on and on and on and on and on, way up there, I'm conveying something. So sort of these nonverbal vocalizations that we use that are in their sounds that we can use, or speed. I can talk really fast or I can talk really slow. Sort of these linguistic variations that aren't they don't carry explicit meaning, but they add to the meaning of the words that I'm already saying. Now, we kind of do this in cyberspace. How many of you use the LOL emoji or the LMAO emoji or the laughing face or the thumbs up? How many of you have ever used emojis? And what you're doing with these emojis is you are, in a sense, attempting to recreate these paralinguistic meanings that you usually use verbally when you're talking with another person. Okay? So, he touched me to say hi and I feel uncomfortable, right? All right, you know what? That's really all I wanted to talk about today, just with the paralinguistic things. Again, I want you to know that good interpersonal communication is going to be key to your success in the business world. No matter what you do, you need to understand how to communicate effectively with other people. Remember, it's not just you and the other person in the message, but it's the context in which you deal it in. It's the mediated environment in which you that you deliver it in. These all matter. What's going to affect your ability to communicate? Whether or not you make eye contact, whether or not you give emotions that give credible belief to the things that you are saying, whether or not you have an open posture as opposed to a closed posture, whether or not you maintain the appropriate social distance when you're talking to a person, whether or not you understand the careful rules about when it is appropriate or not appropriate to touch someone. And I'm telling you, although you might say this is obvious, I can't tell you how many people I know who are poor communicators because they violate one or more of these rules. They either get up in people's faces and yell, or they're too loud and emotional when they talk to people and people are turned off by their emotion. Or maybe, I have friends that while they're talking to you, they're looking around at everything else in the world, and that makes me feel like they don't care about me. There are lots of people who don't use these nonverbals to add to their interpersonal communication abilities. And what I want you to understand is how these factors can make you a better communicator. When I give my lectures, I do my best to use an open posture. I get close to my students. I like to make eye contact to each and every student. I like to smile at students. And all of these things help you to get your message across to the students more effectively. Okay, great. Thank you very much for coming today. I'm about out of coffee, so I'm about out of lecture. I hope to see you tonight in class at 8 p.m. We usually have 7 hearty folks that come. Matthew, Dimitro, Caleb, Johanna. You tend to be my stalwarts every week. I hope to see you again tonight at 8 o'clock. And if anybody else wants to come, I would love to have you. I really enjoy meeting and interacting with students and finding out about your life. So please feel free to come tonight at 8 o'clock. Hey, thank you. Oh, and Paul comes too. Thanks, Paul. I think it's a useful topic. I don't know if I did it justice, but I do think it is an important topic to be aware of. And it's one of the things that I've really worked on over my last 25 years as an educator. Hey folks, take care. Have a great day. I look forward to seeing you tonight at 8 p.m. Bye-bye.